This is a bonus episode. We're doing a crossover with Javi from Locked On Padres because I haven't picked on anybody in a while. So I wanted to talk to Javi. Let's get Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks to our everydayers for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. So please subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now. If this is your first time with us, my name is Jeff Snyder. My normal co-host is Vince Samperio, although today it is me and Javi Reyes of Locked On Padres doing a crossover episode. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans. Javi, like some other team, but all of us spend a lot of time covering our teams, and we bring you, at least Vince and I bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue, and Javi brings you, a perspective on the Padres. But either way, let's jump right in. I'm going to bring in Javi. I've picked on him enough without him on the screen. Now let's put him on the screen so I can pick on him some more in person. Javi, how the heck are you, man?
I'm doing good, man. I wore red to remind you of the last team you lost to in the playoffs, so I just wanted to do that real quick, just to give you a shout out.
Not even
and then there's
right
Pac-Man
color
and
red.
Tatis. We're just hanging out here.
Yeah.
Well, they're partially red. Diamondbacks, they're somewhat red,
Not
I guess.
that red.
Yeah, they're a little bit, though.
I was thinking about you last week. I did a crossover with Jake from Locked On Braves, and all we did was talk about baseball and our teams and the upcoming series and stuff. I didn't pick on him at all. And I was like, this is different than most crossovers I've done, because usually I have Javi to make fun of. I see you you did your hair up real nice tonight, so I wouldn't have anything to pick on you for that.
That I had to get rid of the obvious one. You know what I mean? That's one of your most infamous ones, the Tatis Etsy. No, hold on.
Pinterest failed Fernando Tatis
Pinterest,
Jr.
thank you.
Yep.
Pinterest. Etsy. I love Etsy though. Shouts to Etsy. But yeah, man, really excited to.
Is Etsy a new sponsor of this show? I haven't heard that.
No, don't worry. I'm working on it. Etsy. Just give me a call. But no, I'm really excited about this. We have not done a crossover in a very long time, and it feels appropriate given that, obviously the Dodgers are the Dodgers. The Padres have been really, really inconsistent, but better than last year for sure. I know that the record doesn't show that, but they've been better. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And then you had a lot of fireworks the last time they played. And I wished that I had time, or we both had time to do like a recap after that, because it very much got wild, at least on the internet, although everything gets wild on the internet. But I'm excited to talk about this, man. I think the series is going to be fun. And I think that at the minimum, I think last weekend showed you that the fire, the juice, not just two good teams like the Braves and Dodgers, but the juice, I think, might be a little bit back there, because it really wasn't last year. The Padres are just kind of sleepwalking the entire year last year. This year, it feels like there's a little bit of hatred. You had the Profile Will Smith thing. Who knows what? And then you had the night before with Manny walking out with his, sunflower seeds or whatever. So maybe there's a little bit more electricity between these two teams for this year. So I'm really, really excited to talk about it.
Yeah. Can you give me, I'm not making a joke here, Javi. I don't remember what you're talking about. I've forgotten the last series with the Padres. What fireworks were there? I'm not surprised to hear that Jurickson Profar was involved, but what happened?
So it was on Saturday. The Saturday game was when Profar was complaining about a pitch that was thrown in. Whatever. I don't think it was bad.
When he was a moron, he thought that somebody's throwing at him while he's throwing a perfect game.
Yes, and then speaking of morons, Will Smith then decides to call him irrelevant to the rest of the media in the world, and then he had the game-winning hit the very next day. So don't you start, Mr. Snyder. But no, in all seriousness,
you know what? Whatever works
weird.
So far, he's having the first good season of his career, so that's good for him.
Second good season, and but like it's kind of concerning. I mean, I guess we could start there. I feel like, just to lift off of that, just the biggest storylines between these two teams for the Padres, it has been, in my opinion, it's been Jake Cronenworth, Jurickson Profar, Dylan Cease, a lot of players that have stepped up. Dylan Cease has always been good, but to see him on a team with an actual defense, the Chicago White Sox did not have that. To see him on just a team that has hopes of contending at the very minimum, and then you have some other role players and whatnot, that's kind of been like the big change this year for the Padres. And then you have, Jackson Merrill. He's been a really, really as good as you basically can hope from a rookie. But aside from that, there's still a lot of questions, mainly with their biggest players. It's very weird that they lost Juan Soto, and Jurickson Profar is the one who's making up for that so far. It's just, again, it's been a very inconsistent team, one that's treading water, but I would tell the Dodgers fans, it's definitely not the same as last year, where they had a better record, I believe, at this point, but it wasn't the same. A lot of players, it just felt like they were sleepwalking the whole season. So I'm really excited for it, though. But
the Dodgers won't see Cease this weekend, right?
no, he just pitched. So my listeners are hearing this
Wednesday,
Friday,
right?
so 2 days ago, and for you guys, it'll be 3 days ago. So you're not going to see Cease. Not that it would have dramatically changed how I feel about this upcoming series, but with some of the injuries they've had, with some of the inconsistencies and bad performances that they've had, you might get Darvish, maybe. I think
Darvish is scheduled for Sunday against Walker Buehler, so that should be a fun one. I was looking at the pitching matchups earlier today.
Mm-hmm.
Game 1 is Tyler Glasnow against the guy whose last name is King. What's his first name?
Michael.
All right, so it is a generic name. I was sure he had a first name, At least this time it's not one of my children's names. I could never remember Logan Webb's first name. I'm like, my son's name is literally Logan. And then last night I couldn't remember Ryan Weathers' first name. My other son is named Ryan. So,
and Michael King, at least you haven't called him Michael K the way that I did, which is because of association with him being on the Yankees. And I did that on my first show. That wasn't great. But and Michael King, I guess we want to start there.
Yeah.
Tyler Glasnow was one of my, on my short list for the Cy Young for this year. I just think that he's one of those guys where I think the only concern with him is health. And he's been good. And also concerns with health, but he's so young and it's not like he's been in the league long enough for me to call him injury prone. I think you need to be in the league for a while and get hurt multiple times because Manny Machado once upon a time was called injury prone, believe it or not, like early in his career with Baltimore. So I don't know about that, but man, this first game, it might go quite literally the exact same way that it went the last time Michael King pitched against the Dodgers. Just from my perspective, Michael King's stuff can be really good at times. You might see a couple strikeouts where he will make some of the best players in the Dodgers lineup look bad. But the problem is that he's given up some of the most home runs in all of baseball. The hard contact is there. Yes, you can look at Baseball Savant after, and you will see a lot of whiffs on the changeup especially. But he's been really struggling with being consistent. There have been games against the Brewers, 7 2/3, 10 Ks, 1 hit. And then right after that, I believe, was the Dodgers series. And it wasn't just that he got, hit and gave up runs, but he was giving up home runs to Teoscar Hernandez, to Shohei Ohtani. And if not for some really heroic performances by the Padres offense, which has been basically the saving grace of this team this year, the Padres get killed in that game and that series. So Michael King, it's clearly an advantage for the Dodgers, unless Michael King figures it out, which as of right now, not great, man, not great. So I'm really not confident about him. Wouldn't be surprising to me if he even ends up in the bullpen by the end of the season. So I'll have to see how that transpires.
I like the sound of that. Yeah, that game, the Dodgers have Tyler Glasnow going, who, like you said, health is the only real issue with him over the years. And even this year in a microcosm, his only bad game was when he was sick. And, at the time it was like, okay, is that just an excuse? But no, his 3 starts since then or whatever have all been dominant. It's literally, you look and that start is very much a blip on his record this year. So yeah, when he's healthy, he is so good. And I think it'll be fun because, there's a lot of power versus power, seeing him going up against Tatis and Machado, that obviously Glasnow has a dominant fastball. He also has some good off-speed stuff. And so I'm going to be interested mostly to see how he approaches those two guys, to see, because both of those guys have some holes. If you get them expecting a fastball and you throw them an off-speed pitch just off the plate, you got a chance for some swing and miss there. But you also, both of those guys can hit the ball out of the ballpark, and both of them seem to really enjoy doing that against the Dodgers. And so
yeah,
I do think those two guys, especially, and Profar, those 3 guys come in extra fired up to face the Dodgers.
Yeah, I think that both teams are going to be really fired up for the series. And what's interesting, though, is it's been a while, but Jay Cronenworth is the other one. Jay Cronenworth has been really key for this team. They slotted him 3rd in the order, and heading into the season after coming off a really down year, especially, and that's a whole nother thing about moving him to first base, but he's back. He is now engaged. So he's got that power going for him. Maybe I'm still waiting on the dad power to kick in for Manny Machado. That has not kicked in whatsoever. I believe he's got a 74 WRC plus over his last 10 games. So no, it has not happened, but it's Cronenworth. Tatis, just to get on him really quickly, he's been good and the numbers don't the raw numbers, I should say, don't accurately reflect him enough. Weighted on base versus expected weighted on base, all the hard hit stuff. We're waiting for the nuke, like I'm back to being an MVP contender game. I don't know when it's going to happen. It might not even happen this weekend at all. But Tatis is still to be feared, despite the fact that his numbers aren't the MVP level, because it does seem like he's beginning a little bit unlucky. If you look at some of the other players that are, I think he's 16th at expected weighted on base right now. Everyone else who's above him has like batting 280, 360 on base, slugging. So it's going to happen at some point. And then Jake Cronenworth's been awesome. But Machado, I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm optimistic about him. The real bad one in the Padres lineup is the second baseman of theirs right now, that I would prefer not to talk about. So let's just pretend it doesn't happen. Let's move on to the next game, man.
Why don't we take a break first? We will come back in a second. We're going to talk about, the other two games in this series. But first, Javi's going to read you an ad. So here it goes.
That's right. That's right, folks. I got to do an ad read for you. And we are going to be talking today about a brand new sponsor. It is Stitch Fix. And no, I'm not talking about my boy, though. The lovely blue alien from the Disney movie. I love him very much. But Stitch Fix is here to fix your fits. And that's very important. I am currently rocking this like Crash Bandicoot as the Flash shirt. Don't worry. It's cool. I know you all are very jealous right now, especially if you're watching on video, but Stitch Fix has you covered no matter what your style, size, or budget is. They do it all for you. It's kind of like they got a telekinesis thing going. Is it telekinesis when you can read minds? I think it is, where they just kind of know what you want, and they've got plenty of options. They've got professional stylists to give you all the right pieces and everything that'll fit you on the right point. And if you don't love it, guess what? You just send it back. Don't worry about that. They cover you on the shipping. Isn't that awesome? It's fantastic. You hate that the most. And I had that happen like 2 months ago, and I was like, this shirt is awesome, but now I have to pay to return it. Nobody wants to do that. So check that out with Stitch Fix. Style that makes you feel as good as you look. Get started today at stitchfix.com/MLB. Not Locked On MLB. That's usually the code we use on this network, but it's stitchfix.com/MLB, and you get $20 off your first fix. It wasn't my best work, but that's stitchfix.com/MLB for $20 off, guys. Must redeem within 7 days of signing up, but go check it out. You won't regret it.
Hey, we're back. First of all, Javi, telekinesis, I believe, is the ability to move things with your mind.
Things, right?
That is not a power that Stitch Fix has. Just disclaimer. If you get Stitch Fix expecting to be able to move things with your mind, you will be disappointed, and it will be Javi's fault. But thank you all for being with us. This is Friday's episode. It's probably Friday morning if you're watching this on Locked On Padres, or listening probably Friday afternoon shortly before the series starts for Locked On Dodgers listeners. But we are excited to have you here. Be sure to check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles over on YouTube, 24/7 streaming channels over from the Locked On Podcast Network. But you can also catch every pitch of every Dodger game or Padre game on SiriusXM or the SXM app. Just search for Dodgers or Padres as applicable. Search for either one this weekend because they're playing each other, and that's why we are talking to each other. So there was something I was going to bring up at the end of that last segment, and I can't remember right now, but I'm sure it'll come back to me.
Bogarts, maybe?
No, Fernando Tatis, actually. You
Okay.
mentioned that you think he's going to return to his MVP form. I was noticing today, I saw the betting odds for National League MVP, and I noticed that Tatis and Acuna are both in the top 5, despite the fact that neither of them are having great seasons yet. So it seems like at least the Vegas odds still believe that both of those guys are going to break out. And we saw Acuna, he had his best series of the season last weekend against the Dodgers, hit a home run and had, quite a few hits. So like I said, we know that Tatis likes playing the Dodgers, and so he would love nothing more than to break out against them. The second game of the series will be it's Matt Waldron.
Matt Waldron. I've called him Michael Waldron before, who is a writer for Marvel. So don't worry.
Okay.
I made a mistake too. And then James Paxton for your Dodgers. Jeff, I feel like this is a little bit similar, although Matt Waldron has been weird. Matt Waldron, yes, he has a 5.62 ERA. He had a really bad start last week against the Diamondbacks. The Padres got absolutely killed. It was like 11-3 or so, I think, final score. Gave up 8 in 3 innings. So the ERA is a little bit bloated. he's before that start has kind of been what you want out of a 5 when you're just waiting for some of your farm system guys. For the Padres, that's Robbie Snelling, Adam Mazur, Dylan Lesko, a bunch of those guys, kind of waiting for them to come up. He throws a very interesting knuckleball that when it's on will genuinely be like a sight to behold. It could fool any hitter in the league. The problem is I never know when it's going to be on. And frankly, I don't even know if he knows whenever it's going to be on. And that's what happened last week, where it was at the point where Diamondbacks hitters were like giving. Like, I remember it was a 3-0 count to one guy. He's like, I'm ready to take the strike here. And he still threw it outside. So Waldron might get beat up pretty badly in this game. And I don't think he'll have the same flash potential that someone like Michael King might have. And then James Paxton is still around and kicking, man. You know what I mean? He's still around and kicking. Shouts to Scott Boras with that 6-pack quote. Or whatever that he had over free agency a couple of weeks ago. I forgot what it is, but everyone just look up 6-pack James Paxton or something like that. And with him, he's also similar to Glass now. It feels like he's just been, it's all health with him. He could be a really solid starter. And especially given that Walker Buehler had been on the IL for a while, it's a pretty good pickup. And so far I see 3.06 ERA. He's walked more batters than he struck out.
Slide your eyes over to the FIP column, and that tells you the whole story of James Paxton's season. The ERA is 3.06. The FIP is 5.48 because he is not afraid to walk a dude. His first start of the year, he walked 5 guys. And I said on Locked On Dodgers, well, the good news is he's not going to walk 5 batters every time. And while that was technically true, he hasn't walked 5 batters every time because sometimes he walks 8. Now he's had 2 games of 5 walks and he's had a game of 8 walks. His walks per game, 5, 1, 8, 3, 5, 2. And unsurprisingly, the 1 and 2 games were really good games. And the 5 and the 8 and the 5 were not. And that's the whole story of James Paxton's season so far when he throws strikes. Because the problem is when you're walking guys, it's not just the walks. It's also the fact that you're always in a hitter's count, which means you're always throwing hitters pitches just to get back in the count. So, I mean, if Paxton gets behind Manny Machado 3-0 or 3-1, Machado's going to hit a home run off him, you know, if he can get one in the strike zone too. Like, that is the best way for a guy like Machado or Tatis to break out. It's the best way for a guy like Profar to stay hot, or Bogarts to break out, is to have a left-handed pitcher who can't throw the ball where he wants to. And so Saturday's game concerns me a lot. I figure I talked about this last week and I was talking to Jake from the Braves. Like, going into that series, the Tyler Glasnow game felt like a win for the Dodgers, and the Max Fried versus, I can't remember who he went against, that felt like a win for the Braves. So I was like, okay, that the Friday game is going to be the most important because that's the one that's going to determine who wins the series. Turned out the Dodgers won all 3 of them, which is the way I like it. But in this one, it's this Matt Waldron against James Paxton game that I feel like this is the most important game because it could go either way, because both of these pitchers could easily implode and both of these offenses are more than capable of making a pitcher implode. Yeah,
absolutely. And Paxton, like, with the 3.06 ERA, like, he's got, I don't use WAR personally for pitchers, but he is in the negative. It seems like he's one of those guys, it's going to happen at some point, unless he starts throwing more strikes consistently. It's not a guarantee he's going to be like this full way, but eventually, if you're doing it with this, someone is going to get absolutely torched. And that's kind of what happened with Michael King a little bit. He had the game where he gave up no runs and walked 7. Right. So the Padres do like relate to it on a little bit of a smaller level. And Paxton does earn the injury prone tab, unlike I think Glasnow, for the reasons I explained in the first one. So yeah, this one might be fun. Saturday Night Fever. Like, I don't know if we just get a lot of offense in this one, if it gets as fireworky as last time they played. I don't know. We'll have to see. But it's really interesting. I am wondering though, because if let's just hypothetically talk about if both of these stars get killed, how has the Dodgers bullpen been this year?
I was just about to ask you how the Padres bullpen is. Precious. Yeah, the Dodgers bullpen was really bad, but lately it's been really good. And I think the big difference has been the starters have been going deeper in games, and so the bullpen's not as overworked. And so the Dodgers come in with a very rested bullpen for sure, but really they only have 4 or 5 relievers who you would even feel remotely comfortable with in a close game. They've got a couple. They got Gus Varland and JP Fireeisen, who are the back end of that bullpen. But you know, all in all, like you've got your Daniel Hudson and Alex Vesey has been good lately. Michael Grove's been good lately. Joe Kelly. Oh no, Joe Kelly's hurt. I can't remember who else they have right now, but you know, they've got guys who they trust in close games, and those guys have been pretty good lately. But like Evan Phillips is currently hurt. Joe Kelly's hurt. Ryan Brazier's hurt. So they're not at full strength. And, you know, Bruce Gratterall's been hurt the whole season so far. But it's been a pretty good bullpen lately. And the key is, I think if they can get 6 or 7 innings from Glasnow in game 1 of the series, then the bullpen remains nice and rested, so they would even have the ability to, you know, if Paxton blows up, Ryan Yarbrough has been an awesome long reliever, and you know, he'd be available for 3 innings or whatever if he needs to, which has been a really important role for him this year. So the Dodgers bullpen has been good lately, not so good that I feel super comfortable with them, but good enough. How about the Padres?
The Padres, a little bit of a similar vibe, except they had been, it's a little bit of the opposite. So instead of being better lately, they've been a little bit worse lately. So Enel De Los Santos and Yuki Matsui have been these guys who've been really great setup players. Matsui, I think, showed that like he was going to regress a little bit. He was walking more batters than striking out. That's usually like lesson number 1 for when you're going to regress. But his split finger fastball is just unbelievable. The problem is, how much does he trust his fastball, and especially against these Dodger hitters? That is going to be a huge test. But the splitter, I think opponents are hitting like 120 against it, maybe even below 100. So that thing is legit. It is crazy, and you might see it this weekend in action. And then Enel De Los Santos has been like a really underrated, solid reliever for the Padres, who they got in the trade with the Cleveland Guardians for Scott Barlow. Saved some money there, and he's been better than Barlow this year. So that's been a rare, small, like under the radar like move from general manager AJ Preller that's worked out. And then it gets a little bit more shaky, but not bad necessarily. You might remember a couple times when you faced off against Adrian Morejon potentially from the Padres. He has converted to a reliever, and it's really early and still, and he did get hit in his, like, I think 3 appearances ago, but his stuff, plus if you like looking at those metrics, just raw data on like individual pitches, has skyrocketed for Morejon, which is making me wonder, this might be legit. It's still early to say, but he's looked really, really, really sharp for the Padres. This might be, for Padres fans, one, they had Drew Pomeranz as a starter, went to the Red Sox, converted to reliever, and then he was great. Came back to the Padres, was great until he got hurt. That might be what's happening here. And Morejon's always had a really good fastball. Like, he throws hard. So it's not shocking, but it's something to keep an eye on. And then one of their prospects, Jeremiah Estrada, throws absolute heat. And he's a guy that I think will be good, but in high leverage. Young player. Last weekend also struggled. I'm sorry, not last weekend, last series against the Cubs. The bases loaded. They had to bring in Robert Suarez. So, Estrada is another one to look out for. But I do think the Padres bullpen is much, much better than last year, despite a little bit of regression of late. And then Robert Suarez has been one of the better closers in all of baseball, at least to start. And his pitch mix is basically fastball, faster fastball, fastest fastball, and really, really fast fastball. That's it.
Is he not throwing the changeup anymore? Didn't he have a good changeup?
I think he did, but he seems to be a lot more aggressive. And I think it's because last year he started off the season hurt, and he ended up, spending a lot of time, I think more than they expected, on the IL. He does throw his sinker and he does throw his changeup. Don't get me wrong, but he really likes challenging hitters. Batters are hitting 100 against his fastball. Like, it's just been really hard for them. That's been his go-to pitch. And his changeup needs a little bit of work, but it can give up a lot of hard contact. I think that's where a lot of his hard contact comes from. But the whiffs on the fastball, man, that thing is, he just challenges everybody. Now, it is the Dodgers lineup. I'm going to be very curious to see if he has to be a little bit more strategic, I think, instead of just being like, hey, Mookie Betts and Shohei Ohtani, try and hit this. It wouldn't be my go-to approach, is how I'll put it.
Well, all right. We got one more game to talk about, so we will take one last break, and then we'll come back. We will talk about game 3, which is Walker Buehler against Yu Darvish. Should be a lot of fun. So please stay locked on with us. Do you have people counting on you financially? If so, you know that life insurance is super important to protect your loved ones in case something were to happen to you. But finding the right life insurance policy can be time-consuming and overwhelming, and that's where Policygenius comes in. Policygenius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace and saves you time and money so you can provide your family a financial safety net starting today. Policygenius helps you compare your options at top companies, and their team of licensed experts is on hand to help you talk through it. Back when I got my first life insurance policy, it was because my wife's cousin showed up at our house pretending he just wanted to visit us, and they pressured us into buying a life insurance policy from him. Years later, we wised up and we met with an expert, and we actually got the advice we needed and got a much better policy that met our needs better. If Policygenius had been around back then, it could have saved me a lot of time and money in the process. So if you don't have life insurance, it's time to get some. And if you do, it's still worth checking to make sure you have the right coverage. So check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policygenius. Head to policygenius.com/lockedonmlb or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/lockedonmlb. This episode is also brought to you by DoorDash. I live 660 miles from my mom, but that doesn't mean I can't get her something thoughtful for Mother's Day. Thanks to DoorDash, I can surprise Mama Snyder with fresh flowers, a gift card, her favorite sweet treat, or countless other options. And you can do the same for your mother, whether you live around the corner or across the country. And because you listen to Locked On Dodgers and or Locked On Padres, you can even save money when you do it with DoorDash. Just use code LOCKEDONMLB to get 50% off your next order up to $15 when you spend at least $15 on your next flower, convenience, grocery, or retail order on DoorDash. And with the DoorDash Dash Pass membership, you'll get saved with a $0 delivery fee and reduced service fees on eligible orders from Dash Pass merchants. Other fees, including service fee apply and terms apply. I've had a Dash Pass membership for over 4 years, and I've saved a ton of money on delivery and service fees. It has literally paid for itself in my case. So again, use promo code LOCKEDONMLB to get 50% off up to $15 on your next DoorDash order of at least $15. That's promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Order using DoorDash today. Terms apply. Hey, we're back. One last segment. I'm with Javi. I'm Jeff Snyder from Locked On Dodgers. That's Javi Reyes from Locked On Padres. Both of us coming to you 5 days a week, talking about our favorite teams. And those two teams clash this weekend. We've covered the first two games. It kind of works out nice. 3-game series, 3 segments in a podcast. Bing, bang, boom, as they say in show business. Is that a show business term? Sure.
I think they say, but no, bada bing is like from only like a specific movies. I don't know. They say like lights, camera, action, stuff like that.
Booyah.
Right? Booyah, Cyborg from
Baba
DC Comics,
Booey.
maybe. Baba Booey is just cool, frankly.
Yeah. We could spend this whole segment talking about stuff, but we've got a game to talk about. 2 Dodger greats, 2 number 21s for the Dodgers. I think Darvish wore number 21 with the Dodgers, didn't he? I think he did.
Genuinely, I don't remember. Remember.
Walker Buehler definitely wears 21 with the Dodgers now. I know Zach Greinke did. Maybe I'm thinking of Greinke, but no, Greinke and Darvish didn't overlap, so they might have. Anyway, Zach Greinke is not pitching in this game, but Walker Buehler and Yu Darvish are. It's Buehler's second start back from Tommy John surgery. His first start was solid. He went 4 innings, allowed 3 runs. It was about as good as we could have hoped for a first start in a couple of years. Don't really have any idea what to expect from him in this next start. So I guess my analysis of this is your guess is as good as mine, Javi.
Yeah, that's basically how I feel. In terms of Buehler, I mean, this is why coming into the season, I think we talked about this on our roundtable, where when it came to who had the best rotation, my thing is if you get healthy, Walker Buehler, I think they have very much the best rotation. Maybe the Giants occasionally can touch them, and maybe the Diamondbacks could, especially because we didn't know they'd be signing Jordan Montgomery. But Buehler, I have no idea. This is one of those games where it's going to be like, oh, yep, Buehler's back. Or it's like, yeah, he still needs some time, because everyone does when they're coming back from Tommy John surgery. So I don't know. And it's a tough team to face in your second start. Granted, Miami, little bit of a discrepancy there. Not exactly the best. And no, wait, that was the Yamamoto start. My apologies.
Buehler faced the Marlins in his first start. Yeah.
He faced the Marlins, but I was thinking of I thought it was Buehler for a second, the no-hitter alert thing that went viral.
The
Jazz homer.
Yeah, that was Yamamoto.
And then on the Padres side, it's Yu Darvish, who quietly has a sub-3 ERA. He's pitched really good since coming off the IL with just a neck strain, so it wasn't anything super serious. But Darvish's entire thing is health, straight up. And it's not always availability health in the sense that it's like, oh, well, he's pitching. That means he must be healthy. No, 2021, he had a back issue. And that's why you can see when you saw in 2021, they fell off like the entire rest of the team, that Darvish had a back issue, and he was much worse in the second half. 2022, healthy the full way, all-star, one of the better pitchers in the National League. Last year, hurt again, same sort of issue. And this year, a little bit shaky, but he can still ratchet it up, man. He still throws 27 different pitches. He can still get some strikeouts. He can still give up a lot of hard contact, but because of the strikeouts, he can make up for it. But Darvish has been a little bit on a roll lately. And also he does still have a little bit of that like big game thing to him. So depending on what the vibe is this weekend, I could see him having a really good start here, but I could also see Buehler having a good start. This one's going to be fun. I don't know. Is it? I wish it was the ESPN one. I wish it was the ESPN one because that's a pretty good one to show, but it is not.
I would never wish an ESPN Sunday night game on my listeners.
That is also fair. I bet in terms of the national stage, but I know
last time the Dodgers and Padres played on Sunday Night Baseball, it was a shoe like a convention, like a Nike convention that a baseball game broke out at. Like they had 18 different pre-recorded segments about shoes that were taking up 2/3 of the screen while the game is relegated to a corner. Yeah, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. Darvish did wear 21 with the Dodgers. Interestingly, so Darvish has pitched 6 full seasons and 2 partial seasons in the National League. So 8 seasons in the National League. Guess which one of those years he actually made an all-star team, Javi?
Huh. Did he make it with the Cubs?
No, 2021. The bad season. That was his.
Okay. I thought
that
you were
was the
saying
only time he's made the all-star team in the National League was his bad season with the Padres in 2021. So
I actually forgot about it. Wasn't he the starter? I think he was like the starter. He might have been because I think Scherzer got hurt that year. So he could have pitched or whoever was supposed to be the number one, I think got hurt. Maybe DeGrom? I don't know. He might have been the all-star starter, but whatever.
No, in fact, he didn't even pitch in the game. He made the team, but didn't pitch in the game, according to the box score I'm looking at right now.
Maybe that adds to the whole thing that he got hurt. I don't know, but yeah, 2021 was so long ago. You know what I mean?
It really was, and I understand why you would want to forget that season. But, we all have things we want to forget when it comes to our favorite baseball teams. All in all, so I think you and I agree probably that the Dodgers have the edge on Friday and probably that the Padres have the edge on Sunday, although maybe a little bit closer. I do think the gap between Darvish and Walker Buehler is smaller than the gap between Tyler Glasnow and Michael King. So it's going to come down to Saturday's game to be the tiebreaker. What do you think, Javi? Who's winning this series?
I'm going to give this to the Dodgers, and that's not me doing a reverse jinx. I know that that's what all my listeners are. That's what they're going to think. I think the Dodgers are in a little bit of a roll, and the Padres took the last one. So, you know what I mean? I'm just going by law of averages here, basically. I think that's how it'll go. But I really want to see what happens with this Buehler start. I don't know what's going to happen fully because if he's on immediately, it's like I think that there is a chasm. That's how much I think of Walker Buehler. I think he's very, 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 very good. And frankly, if he didn't get hurt, I thought that he was going to be a Cy Young guy potentially too. So you've got him. Luckily for the Dodgers, for some reason, Yamamoto, the freak that he is, and I would put money on it, he will win 2 Cy Youngs in his career. That's how much I think Yamamoto is going to be good. For some reason, can't pitch against the Padres. It's the only team. I don't know why he struggled against the Padres, but then he'll face the Braves. And he looks like, untouchable, basically, right? So,
yeah, I kind of wish he was going against the Padres this weekend because I do think it would be a good test. I think I mentioned this the other day on our show that I don't think the Padres have some magic formula against him. I think he had his worst game against them. And, in the other game, he wasn't bad.
I think it's in his head.
So I'd like to see now that he has a little more confidence. So hopefully next time they play, he can pitch against them. I guess we're about out of time here, huh?
Yeah, pretty much, man. But
you got any final jabs for me?
Not really, honestly.
Oh, good, because I have one for you.
I'm going to send one little heart, though. Here's what I'm going to say. The Teoscar Hernandez Shohei Ohtani thing is really adorable, and I've really enjoyed it. I read some of the stories, the whole he teaches him Spanish and then like all that stuff. I think that's so cute, and I like Teoscar Hernandez as someone who is also Latino, obviously. I talk about that enough on Twitter for people who follow me. But I was a friend of mine was at one of the Yankee games when they made some questionable comments at him, and then he hit a home run. So I've got some love for Teoscar Hernandez, and I hope he does well. Nice. Just hopefully not this series. That'd be great.
Well, my heart is not so much a heart. I noticed today the Rockies have played 11 different teams this year, and the only one they don't have a losing record against is the Padres. So that's what I have for you, Javi.
4 years or 3 years. Last year was the first time in the last that the Padres had a winning record. Before that, they were 8-11, and I believe 7-12. Those past years. So I don't know what it is, and it's not like they have like one batter killing them. I don't know what it is. But Padres baseball. That's all I can say.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. Thank you all for being with us. I'm on Twitter at Snydog. He's on Twitter at Javi Peno. Enjoy the series. We'll probably do this again next time. We're coming up against each other. We've got a couple more series left this season. So check out Locked On Dodgers and Locked On Padres every weekday morning, and we will talk to you later.